This video will cover the use of the widget management capabilities inherent in the InterChange framework and the InterChange App Manager. Now, Akumina has introduced a fundamentally new approach in our widget framework and how widgets in general can be used to quickly and easily add functionality to a site. Now, when I talk about InterChange widgets, I'm really referring to the building blocks populated on the pages of an intranet site which provide the information and user experience of the site. The easier it is to add, edit, and manipulate these widgets, the easier it is to build, deploy, and update your intranet. Now, I said that we have developed a new approach in how widgets are created, edited, and displayed on the sites. Well, key to this new approach is the separation of the widget's functionality and the presentation or display of the widget data. It starts with the base widget definition. Now, there are 22 out-of-the-box base widget definitions included with InterChange, and developers can easily add more. The base definition really determines what data will be made available by the widget, as well as any manipulation of the data that may be done. Now, next comes the view. The view is an HTML template developed by the designer, or the developer can also create it. The key is that the view is separate and distinct from the base widget, but uses the data the base widget provides. Now, combining the base widget and the view really provides the functionality and presentation for the site. In this case, the main menu will be displayed based on a combination of the widget, which happens to be the Quick Links widget, the view template that was created by the designer to render that data as a main menu in the site. Now, by separating the widget's base functionality and the view that's used to display its data on the site, a single widget can serve many purposes simply by changing the view of the data. So each widget, whether it's an image gallery, a quick list, or a calendar widget, can have multiple views that control the display of content. Each view allows there to be a different form or a different rendering of a component on the site. Now, this saves developers time from having to create new widgets simply to display content in different contexts, and also leaves the designers free to create new views using the available data without having to deal with editing the widget core code. And this is the fundamental change and the fundamental benefit of widgets in the InterChange framework. Okay, enough concepts. Let's get right into the details of using the new widget functionality. Now, in this section, we will review how to create a widget instance, how to add the widget to the site, how to edit the properties of the widget directly on the site, and finally, how to add and enable a new view of a widget. So, sorry, I lied. Just one more diagram I want to show you to establish some terminology. Remember how I talked about being able to create multiple widgets on a site from one base widget definition? Well, we have a term for that. It's called instances. Now, as in this example, from one Quick Links base widget, I can create 3 instances for the site. One for the main menu, another for the department menu, and finally, one for the convenience links listing. Now, each of these instances has its own specific ID, and you'll see as we get into the details where that comes into play. Now, this is important to understand as we now finally get into the details. Now, for this example, I'm going to use our digital workplace site. And what I want to do is I want to add what is called an important dates widget. And I'm going to add it right here above the department news summary widget. So I want to add that to my digital workplace homepage. The way that I do that is I actually access, using my apps, the management app called the Widget Manager. Right? The Widget Manager is the core app for being able to create new base definitions, to being able to add instances of a widget, to defining the properties, and finally the views. So let me go ahead and access the Widget Manager just by clicking on it. So that's opening up the Widget Manager app. I could have alternatively just gone into InterChange to the Management Apps tab and launched the Widget Manager from there. Right? So in my Widget Manager, you'll see the 22 out-of-the-box base widget definitions that are available within InterChange and the InterChange framework. Now we'll be continually adding to these definitions as time goes on. In addition, developers, either within your own company or within your partner company, can add new widgets simply by adding the class names, defining the properties that are part of the widget, etc. So this would be a developer adding a new widget, new base widget functionality to then be available to use on the site. We're not going to go into that today. That's part of the developer training. So let me cancel out of that and go back to my base widget types. Now I can look at base widget types and edit them. And since I'm going to add the important dates widget to the site, let's take a look at the base information for the important dates widget type. Now I do that by clicking on Edit, and that's going to show me what the properties are in the important dates widget. So here you can see that I can define what the list name is, what the displayed title is, if there's any that I want to use, a number of different fields. Now for each of the out-of-the-box widgets, there is the widget reference guide, which provides what the functionality is of the widget and what all the properties available are for the widget as well. Now when the developer sets this up, they can have the property name that they have within the code, but they can also have the friendly name. That's going to be displayed on the front end, which would make more sense sometimes to the people who are actually working with and adjusting the properties of a particular widget instance. So I won't go into all the properties here, but also notice that there's a views section within the base definition. This is where, as we'll see later because we'll go through the steps, I add the views that are available for this particular base widget, in this case important dates. So we'll go through that in a minute, but what I'd like to do right now is I'll cancel out of this, and now I actually want to be able to add an instance of the important dates that I'm going to use on the home page of my site. And you remember we said when you're going to put an item on the page, a widget on the page, you need to create an instance for that widget. So let me go to my important dates widget here, and I'm going to view instances. Okay. In this case, on the home site, which is where I am, there are no instances of the important dates widget. So I'm going to create one. So I do add widget instance, and I'm going to label this instance. I'm going to call it homepage important dates, and actually I'm going to call it calendar events because that's what I want this title in this particular widget to be. Then I'm going to go down and change or update any of these items that I need to. Now the list that I'm using that contains the data for my important dates is called important dates AK. So I can leave that the way it is. Right? I want the displayed title, the title that's going to be at the top of this widget that's on the site, to be calendar events. That'll be the title that's displayed. I'm not going to display an icon, although I have a large number of icons that I could choose from should I want to show one. And then some of these others aren't important other than the number of items to display. Not important, I'm saying, for our particular use here and for this example. Number of items to display, I want to set to be 5. So if I have 100 calendar events or important events, I don't want to display them all in this widget on the home page. That'll take up too much room. So I'm going to set the number of items to be 5. And then finally, I'm going to enable the view to be used with this widget. In this case, for important dates right now, we only have one view that's available for it. So I'm going to display that view and select that view as the only one. As I said in a few moments, we'll go through adding a new view that I can make available to the front end. So now I've set the important properties here that I want. I'll go ahead and save and exit because I'm done editing this instance. And then I'll see my instance is now listed here. Now to add this instance, to add this to the home page as I want to, all I need to do is to copy the snippet of code which has the ID for this instance. So I'll just go ahead and hit the copy button, and that's copied it. And now I go back to the home page of the site, turn the SharePoint bar on so that I can get access to the edit capability. And this is a handy little capability here to be able to hide the SharePoint bar when you don't want to be taking that real estate up at the top of the screen. So I'm just going to quickly edit this page. Then I have a content editor web part that's part of the page, which I can use for this particular column to add in my snippet of code. And I actually wanted to add it above or before the home page department news. So I'll just paste it in there, click OK, and then publish the page. It's just that easy. So that will add the instance that I created of the important dates widget to the home page of the site. And there we can see it rendering right there. And there's my title, calendar events. And I have 4 items in the list, so I didn't go past my threshold of 5, so I'm fine there. So adding it is just as easy as that. So I have my instance in place, but what now if I want to update or change some of the properties of this particular widget? Well, we have something called in-context editing, which is a feature of the InterChange framework. If I twiddle my little control panel down here, I can put the entire page in a mode, and notice I didn't have to put the SharePoint page in edit mode, in a mode where I can access any of these widgets to adjust their properties. So simply by clicking on the new calendar events widget that we added to the home page, I can get access to all those same properties that I saw when I was defining the widget within the widget manager. So very easy access from the front end. And let's say in this case I want to change the number of items to display from 5 to 2, because I don't want to, in this particular view, take up a lot of space. I just update that to 2, go ahead and click the update button, and immediately I see that change take place. So very tremendously powerful capability for whether it be admins or business users that you want to give access to being able to adjust the properties on widgets to be able to do right in the context of the page. Now, when I opened up that particular widget, you saw a number of the properties, all of the properties that we saw from within the widget manager. But what if I didn't want to show all these properties or display all of them to some of my business users, for example, that I might have given access to be able to do this type of editing? Well, very easily, if I go back to my widget instance for this that we created, and I go into Edit, I can determine which properties will actually display on the front end. So for example, if I don't want them changing or working with the View All link, or I don't want them adding an icon, or I don't think these fields are necessary for them to be able to manipulate from the front end, I can hide all of these fields from the front end. So if I make those changes and save, now I go back to the front end and take a look at edit mode, and now you'll see only the fields that I said should be visible on the front end for any changes are actually there. So not only do I have very powerful in-context editing, I can also make that in-context editing, that front-end adjustment or management of the properties of the widget, much more effective and much more efficient for the typical type of user that'll be using it. Now the final item we had on our agenda is adding a new view to a widget. You can see here in the list of views we have only the one view, the home page important dates view, that's available on this important dates widget that we just added. So let's take a look at the process for actually adding a new view to make it available for the widget. In order to do that, I'm going to go to my View Manager app under the Management apps. Now the View Manager app is really that app for the designer. The View Manager app provides a view into all of the templates that are available for all of the widgets within the system. So in this case, we've been working with important dates. We can see that there are actually two templates that are available, but as we saw in the widget definition, only one of those templates is actually enabled. I can view the HTML for the template simply by clicking on it. So once again, a designer coming in here would very quickly and easily recognize the HTML and the constructs and what information was being used and could actually modify it right here. Or they could use that as a template and then create another view offline to be uploaded here. So I actually do have another view, and I'm going to go ahead and add new that's been provided by my designer. So they provided the HTML template. I'm going to go ahead and choose that file, and the view is actually called upcoming. So I'm going to select that, and that will then add the upcoming view when I save to the list of templates that are available for important dates. So if I take a look at my important dates again, I should see the new upcoming view that's available. Now, in addition to the View Manager, we provide another very powerful tool for designers as well. In order to actually create a view, I need to know what data is available from the particular widget. If I go back to our Important Dates widget again, I see the option called Get View. When I click on Get View, it's going to provide me with the list of all of the tokens, all of the data items that are available for this particular widget, regardless of whether or not they're currently being used in the current view. With this list of all the tokens, I can create and construct any view that I want based upon the data that's available. So very, very powerful capability for designers. Now, just to note, caching must be on the particular widget in order to be able to get that view information and the tokens that are available. So just ensure that there's some cache interval that is set and is active for the widget, and you will see the Get View button. In addition, it's important to note that in the display of all the data tokens, I can either choose to copy or to download that information. If I download it, it actually puts these tokens into an HTML file all ready for the designer to add their additional markup. So once again, very powerful. All right, so let's get back to adding that new view for our important dates or our calendar events widget here. If I go back into the widget manager and then go to important dates, I need to go to the base definition again to be able to enable that new view, the upcoming view that we added via the view manager. So in the important dates widget, base widget definition, I go down to the views section. In the views section, I'm going to add a new view. I'm going to call that view column view, and you'll see why in a minute. And now I'm going to map that template that I just added. When I click on View Picker, it's going to bring up the same view as I get in the View Manager, so that I can go ahead and traverse down to my Important Dates widget and select that new view called upcoming.html. All right, so I've added my new view to the base definition so that it will be available for all the instances. I'm going to go save and exit. And now I'm going to access the instance that I put on the home page to enable that view for the instant. So here's my instance. I'm going to edit. And now I will see the new view added to my instance, and I want to enable that for display. I'm still going to make the first one the default view or the selected view, but I'm going to be able to change this on the front end. I could also change it here if I wanted. So I've enabled that display view. I'll go ahead and save that. And now let me go back to the front end. Let me go ahead and edit my calendar events widget. And when I do that, I'll see that the new view is now available. So applying that view is as easy as selecting it. I'm actually going to make the number of items to display 4, because I know that this is a 4-column type of view, and update. And as soon as I do that, there is my new view. So now we've looked at the process of creating a new widget and a widget instance, adding the widget to the site, editing the properties of a widget directly on the site using in-context editing, and finally adding and enabling a new view for a widget. That's the power of widget management with the InterChange framework.